Welcome to the All in Recruitment podcast by Manatal, where we explore best practices, learnings, and trends with leaders in the recruitment space. If you like our content, please subscribe to our channels on YouTube and Spotify to stay tuned to the weekly episodes. My name is Lydia, and joining us today is Sacha Martina, CEO of Your Talent Agency based in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. Hello, Sacha. Thank you for joining us on this podcast.
Hello, Lydia. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today.
So let's dive right in. You have been in the recruitment space for several years now, and you run your own talent agency in Amsterdam. So tell us about your journey in the talent space, Sacha, and what might be some key learnings that have shaped your business as you run it today?
Yeah, so I've been in the recruitment business for 12 years already. And I started out as a baby recruiter working for an agency in Amsterdam. And I fell in love with the industry. I fell in love with making clients happy, making candidates happy, making meaningful connections. So I found out pretty early that, this is my purpose, making people happy. And also saw already pretty early on in my career that there's also room for growth and opportunities in the market. Learned that if you want to have change or you see change is needed, that you have to do it yourself. So I started as an agency recruiter, worked my way to corporate, found out that that is not the good formula for me, and went back to startups and scale-ups, found my sweet spot there. First worked as a few years as a contractor, and about 4 years ago, started Your Talent Agency. So a lot of key learnings. I can talk a lot about all of my key learnings. But we're going to dive hopefully a little bit deeper in a couple of my purposes around recruitment.
You are CEO, but your CEO title doesn't exactly stand for Chief Executive Officer, does it? So tell us about this one.
Yes, exactly. So of course, every company needs a CEO, and although my title is CEO, I use the letter E, for a different word. So for me, CEO stands for Chief Epic Officer, for a couple of reasons. First reason is we don't have an executive agency, so the term executive officer also doesn't really fit. And when we were creating our company, our values, our brand, we also found out that we have a very special type of language and wording that we use to define our culture. And one of the words that we use a lot is the word epic. So, for example, in our signature, when we say goodbye to people in an email, we don't say kind regards, we say stay epic. We also say to clients that are working with us, you must be epic because you chose us to work with. And we are not your traditional kind of agency. We always do things a little bit different. And I think that, people that like that, companies that like that, also see the added value in having a slightly different type of wording. So that's where my title as Chief Epic Officer comes from.
So what is epic, Sacha? How would you define that?
I would define epic as special, extraordinary, exceptional, different in a good way, and also a bit rebellious, a bit, I think, the outlaws in a positive sense. So not the ones that really do bad, but the ones that want to do better in the industry and are bold and brave enough to also do it. So not just see it and talk about it, but also take actionable points.
So you're also a consultant for diversity and inclusion today, and this space is obviously very critical. How have you approached DE&I, particularly in terms of raising awareness of its importance for organizations?
Well, that's a great question, Lydia. Thanks. So DE&I is growing in its importance and its awareness, which makes me very happy. But also there is a lot of ground to win for a lot of companies that still are struggling with the terminology around DEI, and apparently also still don't know what the added value is of building diverse teams. So there's a lot of research around why diverse teams are outperforming non-diverse teams. It not only improves your retention rates, it will even outperform your competitors by up to 30% if you have a diverse and inclusive work culture. So I think it's a no-brainer to not invest in it. But the challenge is also that a lot of companies don't know where to start. And that is something I also help them with.
So these are great points, because there are some companies, as you said, who face issues with it. There's a will to implement these strategies or organization. But as you said, studies have shown diversity is a business priority now and not just nice to have. What are some challenges that you've seen that companies face in terms of implementing policies or strategies that support diversity?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges that companies are facing is, especially if it's a company that's been existing in the market, and I'm talking primarily about the Dutch market, which I know most about, is that company owners, company leadership teams are still primarily dominated by men and by white men. So they are also sort of the problem that keeps existing because they keep on hiring the same type of profile for the leadership roles. And we see that diversity is being more adapted in the lower layers of companies. But the big problem is in promoting more diverse leadership teams and management teams. And that is sort of a cycle that needs to be broken. The challenge is that either the leadership team don't even see it and the people below them do see it, or the leadership sees it but don't know how to get started. And just by hiring one woman or one person of color is not going to make your team diverse. So that's also, I think, a type of education that is needed. They need to learn more about the importance of it. And I personally also really think we need more role models being pushed forward to pave the way and show them how the next generation of companies is being built.
And one key aspect in ensuring diverse hires is also making sure that recruitment teams are diverse themselves. So, what might be some factors that agency leaders or heads of recruitment teams should think about when they structure a diverse team of recruiters?
It's very important that when a recruitment team is being built or being established, is that the leaders of the recruitment team keep this constantly in the back of their mind. That diverse hires only come from a diverse recruitment team. If candidates are applying on a role and the whole recruitment team basically looks nothing like the candidate, chances of the candidate actually applying is going down. But it also means that a recruitment leader should not just hire people because they are a diverse hire. Make sure you create a culture that is inclusive, that people want to work there because they see that they can be their true selves, being celebrated for being their true selves and bringing, their whole self to work. And then automatically your team will become more diverse. Talking about this, sharing your desires of building a diverse team, and for example, sharing that as well on your social media, on your LinkedIn, being vulnerable and being curious will be leading the way forward for the recruitment leaders of the market.
And that goes into building a culture that's based on diversity and inclusion. So, what might be some examples that you've seen in your work as a consultant, even your work through your agency today?
Oh, I have so many examples. Okay, let me try to find my best two. One of our clients has seen at one point that there is really a need and a demand for steer groups, without making it too heavy, because the steer groups doesn't always need to be a very heavy topic. Basically, they said, if you are part of the LGBTQ plus community, you want to have a safe space in our company where you can talk with like-minded people, educate and celebrate, and talk about all the initiatives that you guys can take to get our company on the card and on the map as a diverse company. We want to give you that time and space to be with like-minded people. So they have a steer group. They get together once a month for a couple of hours, which is all on company time and company pay. And they have budget to initiate things, to celebrate everything that comes with their community. And they don't only have that for the LGBTQ community, they also have that for people from Black heritage backgrounds, people with a migration background, but also people from different religious groups. And it's not obligated. It's open if you are enthusiastic and passionate about it. But it's also for, well, all the other people that don't really feel like, oh, I am part of one of these communities, but I am an ally. I do want to learn more about this, to join and educate and build more on that inclusive culture together. So that is an example I always love to share. Secondly, something that we do internally, which I always love, and I also give workshops in this field, is by breaking it down in smaller sections. So not making it a big, heavy topic, but try to make it fun. We do a lot of times breakfast sessions together with my team, and I also host breakfast workshops for clients where we teach them small things about the D&I spectrum. So it could be a working session around the LGBTQ community where we teach them all the letters of the rainbow spectrum. It could be about neurodiversity, where we invite people from the neurodiverse background, explain all the benefits that come with hiring neurodiverse people in your team, but also explain to them that, you have to also take into accounting that sometimes people need a little bit of a different kind of attention, but mainly focus on all the pros and not on the cons.
And intersectionality is something we see a lot about, and it's a big topic. I'd like to know your perspective, Sacha, and how you would describe or define intersectionality.
Yes, that's a good one. Intersectionality is a new word for a lot of people in the D&I spectrum. So without making it too heavy, it's important that people know that diversity, inclusion, and equity basically consist of 12 different diversity factors. And there are things that we know and we see. We see people of color having a different physique. We see people who are in a wheelchair. That is automatically that you cross one of the diversity boxes. But there's also a lot of things we don't know or we don't see if you don't know each other. So where have you been raised? Where are your parents from? What is your health situation? If you're not in a wheelchair, but maybe you faced a heavy disease in your life, or maybe you are neurodiverse. It's something that people don't see and therefore don't take into accountability, but it can play a big role in building that diverse and inclusive culture that's so important. So with intersectionality and training people and educating people on, basically we are all different, because out of those 12 topics, you definitely will have one or two boxes that you will also cross. And you see and learn about that from your team, but also from, for example, your clients, your partners, and your peers that you work with. Then people a lot of times see, we're all basically different, and therefore building that diverse culture is going to be a bit easier if you are curious and open about these topics.
And it has been suggested that the use of pronouns creates a more inclusive workplace. So what are your thoughts on this, Sacha?
I'm a big fan of pronouns, and I also had to get used to it in the beginning because, explaining I'm a she, her sounds like an open door because you can see I'm a girl. But that doesn't always necessarily define that you also present yourself as a girl. And already by making it easier for people that don't fit the basic spectrum, having to explain themselves over and over and over again, which is also like a little microaggression on its own. You can share it on your LinkedIn, you can share it in your signature, and then you know you will be right. So you can't make somebody else feel bad. And that's never the intention. But it is a microaggression if a non-binary person gets called a he or a she when they don't define like that. So I think nowadays in the world is changing, where we are much more open about our beliefs, our sexuality, our gender, and how we want to live our lives. I think this is a very logical development, and as a business owner, but also as a leader in the diversity spectrum, I believe it's a very small step to take for people to make a huge impact.
So let's move on to the use of technology or HR technology specifically to support diversity. There's been a study that has shown 58%, just over half of companies that they've surveyed, use HR technology to find, attract, and retain top talent. Now, how might technology help in ensuring diversity in hiring practices?
I am a big fan of these kinds of initiatives because in general, most people still recruit and hire in a pretty traditional way. So if you see a nice job, you send your CV, you send a motivation letter, and then you need to sort of cross your fingers and hope that the person on the other side of the line or the receiving side is happy with receiving that. And your chances are going up if the hiring manager or the recruiter is a like-minded person. If they look like you, if they've been to the same school or studies as you, if they come from the same country, your chances are going up, 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 up. But if it's the other way around and that person looks nothing like you, or maybe even worse, has a bad experience with somebody that comes from the same country or comes from that neighborhood or comes from that college, your chances are going down rapidly, which has nothing to do with your skills or competences. And I think technology can play a big role in building more diverse teams because people need to start looking at each other for competences and skills and not on color, race, background, educational levels, and create their bias around that. So technology can be a huge differentiator in killing that unconscious bias. And I think that especially a lot of leadership teams and C-level teams are needing this to get confronted with their own bias and start hiring for the right skill set and not for the right person.
How should recruiters and HR leaders in this respect prepare themselves to adopt a direction towards diversity in hiring?
So an easy, I think, step to take to prepare is to start talking about this, to putting this on the agenda of your management meetings, of your board meetings. Are we actually being conscious with our hiring process? Are we really thriving? Is that something that fits our values? And if it is, are we really thriving to build that culture? What initiatives are we taking? What can we do more? Are we testing it with our people? Sending out a survey, people send out employee surveys all the time. Are the questions in the employee survey also focused on DE&I? Or is it just about how are people feeling and looking at us as a leadership team? But are they also allowed to bring their whole selves to work? So being critical on the things that you're already doing and maybe upgrading them, but also having that discussion internally with your peers, with your managers on where do we see the future going and how are we going to play a role in that? And can we do that ourselves or do we need external expertise to do that better?
Sacha, you've spoken a little bit about HR technology earlier. So in terms of automation, what kind of technology would HR leaders and recruiters need for them to execute a great recruitment strategy?
That is such a good question. HR leaders and recruiters need to, I think step one is build a good recruitment strategy because a lot of times when we enter a company, there is not even a real strategy. And they are still recruiting based on traditional measures and doing everything manually and not letting technology work for them. So they use it as means to the ends and not using it in its full advantage. And therefore, what we see is that a lot of HR leaders are just adding more recruiters and HR people to the team instead of looking at smart ways to automate a big chunk of that process, which is not only more cost efficient, but is also will lead to less mistakes because all manual labor leads to a higher number of manual mistakes, of course. So it's not always in investing in more people, it's also investing in the right technology. And I think finding a good balance and finding, good partners for that will be a big game changer But it's also, again, I think a little bit on what we initially started with. You need to have a little bit of the rebel HR leaders that see, okay, the future is going a different way. We need to also make more, and we can automate a big chunk of our process more without getting rid of our personal touch as HR leaders and recruiters. So doing the research and seeing how it can benefit their business can be a huge differentiator.
All that time spent on manual tasks, and after automating that obviously frees up lots of time where you can then use for more strategic purposes, such as maybe engaging with candidates, or in this case, in my next question, building a great employer brand, for instance, or representing the brand in a more thoughtful and meaningful way. So what, in your opinion, might be the role of employer branding to attract and keep diverse candidates today?
I'm a big fan of employer branding. I think if employer branding is done properly, it will do the work for you. But companies need to be careful that they do it in the right way with respect. Don't window dress. So window dressing is an example of window dressing is coloring your whole company in the pride logos, pride colors, in order to say we celebrate pride. But if you ask them how many people of the LGBTQ community are working for you, they have no idea. They really have no idea. So they use it to attract people, but they don't even internally focus on it. That's window dressing, and that will never be applauded. That will be punished because people will see it and will not choose you as an employer. And same goes for asking the token people in your team to be the person on the website again and again and again and again. So the companies can use it very well if they're being honest, if they have strong values, if they talk about their values, and even if they notice that, okay, we're not there yet, we're not at that diverse and inclusive culture that we want to build, but we are really doing our best and we are inviting people to help us get to that stage. Sharing that message is a bit vulnerable, but I think vulnerability is such a powerful thing that it should be celebrated more instead of being frowned upon. So if companies are doing employer branding justice, it can be such a game changer for them. And it's so much fun to work on and work with your team. Big fan.
Employer branding is meant to be an enduring effort, because it's not just a one-off. Obviously, as you said, window dressing, if there is all these manufactured or created instances where you're trying to project something that isn't authentically available inside your organization, then it's easy to see through that. So all the points that we talked about earlier in terms of an inclusive culture and building that authentically with everyone, then also cascades into employer brand naturally, because people would want to showcase those things. So excellent. Thank you so much, Sacha, for your time and your wonderful insights today. So where can our audience connect with you?
Oh, I would love to connect with people. If people are inspired by my purpose around diversity and inclusion, or excited about our journey in the recruitment industry, or just curious about me, please find me. I'm most active on LinkedIn. So that's, I think, just my full first name and last name, Sacha Martina. We are also very active on our LinkedIn company page, your talent agency. And we recently also jumped on TikTok and Reels to share more of our insights behind the scenes of the agency. So if people are curious, I invite you to follow us on all platforms, and I love to interact with like-minded people.
I'm quite curious, by the way, Sacha. The background that you have says first they laugh and then they copy. Where did that come from?
Yeah, that is one of the quotes. I didn't think of it, unfortunately, but I think it's a very powerful one, because as a rebel, as a more rebellious kind of person, but also rebellious kinds of agency. In the beginning, we struggled as well, because we were trying to create something that wasn't really there, pushing on things like diversity, inclusion, but also one of our missions is bringing more international talent to the Netherlands which is automatically already a differentiator, of course, in terms of diversity, but also we have a problem in the Netherlands that we have a huge shortage on highly level staff. And we saw that solution already years ago, but a lot of people are hesitant around change and transformation. Yeah, so we started it, and we were the first agency in the Netherlands that recruited internationally, but also facilitated clients in getting those people on board through immigration and relocation. And then we saw a couple of years later that more companies started to do that. So this is also a little bit where the quote comes from. First they laughed, then they copy. First, a lot of people and companies said like, this is not going to work, right? People are not ready for this, or this is not the market for it. And apparently it is. So we put this quote on our wall to remind ourselves that being rebellious is always a good thing. So find your inner rebel. And if people say it can't be done, prove them wrong, prove them differently.
Thank you, Sacha. And we have been in conversation with Sacha Martina, CEO or Chief Epic Officer of Your Talent Agency based in the Netherlands. If you like our content, please subscribe to our channels and stay tuned for more weekly episodes from All in Recruitment.